Hey, Ned, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. So, hi, Dawn. I hope you're well.
Hanging in there.
This whole idea, and I hear it, and I'm sure you hear it too, the idea that this is a candidates market. And so many people think, oh, it's a candidates market. So, now's the time to move, and it's easy to find a job because the economy is better and there are, sort of jobs everywhere. And I think what a lot of people don't realize, and I know, I talk about this, and I'm sure you all do as well, that now that there's more, the economy is picked up and there's more jobs out there, a lot of the people who have been hunkering down at their jobs that they don't like for the past 2 years plus are now looking. So that's making it, the competition, I think, much tougher than people think when they hear all this candidate market
Yeah.
conversation. What do you think about that, Tom?
Well, the only time there's no competition if you're the only one in the job market. So it's always competitive in my mind. Um, you know, when the job market is good right now, but that's emboldened a lot of people who may be out of the job market for the past 2 years. But even beyond that, people just have the balls to go out and look for a job where they didn't for the past 10, 15 years. I'm also seeing a lot of companies kind of doing this restructuring where they are restructuring whole different departments or whole different divisions, and a lot of long-term people are now finding themselves in the job market like they did during the last recession. So there's a combination of a lot of things going on. Like I said, the only time there's no competition if you're the only job seeker in the world. Other than that, it's always a competitive market in my mind.
Yeah, I think so too. And Dawn, since you mentioned having so many people coming to you because they're not looking for a job, is that what you're finding with the clients that you're working with, that they are people who have been waiting to move and deciding that now's the time?
Yeah, I'd say it's kind of a mix. I mean, we've got people that, some companies, I work with a lot of folks in the hospitality industry, and obviously with COVID-19 has just devastated that whole industry. If no one's traveling, there's nobody spending money at any of these hospitality related businesses. So I think that in some respects, some folks are repurposing their career and their transferable skill sets to look for something new. And I think in the competitive marketplace, it's kind of like the buyer's market. I mean the seller's market. Sorry, I always get those confused. So the seller's market, because the job seekers, if you can articulate your value better than other candidates, you're probably going to be the one who's going to have the best choice of opportunities in front of you and command the highest salary. So, knowing your value is always going to be important no matter what in a competitive job market. So, and communicating that value, knowing it is one thing, but actually communicating that to help make yourself stand out head and shoulders above everybody else is really critical. What do you guys think?
I would say that I agree with you, and I know Tom is ready to add to that. I just wanted to mention we have some people in the audience. If you have a question, something that you're facing as you're looking for a job right now, please feel free to raise your hand, come up and join us on the stage. We could talk to each other all day because we're all friends as well as colleagues, but we really want to be here to help you with your job search. So please feel free to come up. And if you're new to Clubhouse, welcome to Clubhouse. Please do put something in your profile if you want to come up on the stage. So I will pass the mic back to you, Tom. Over to you, Tom, for your response.
Well, don't hit it right on the button, and that philosophy has never changed. When I do recruiting, I could be looking at 5 different resumes. The resume that shows the most value, the most outcomes and contributions, typically in most cases will get my eyes first. So it's so important to make sure your resume doesn't just have a list of job functions, that it really lists what you did in each of those functions. So important. It's an easy concept, but it's hard to do on your own sometimes because we live inside the jar, and our ingredients to who we are and what we do is facing outward. So sometimes it's hard for us to see what we're all about. So sometimes getting a partner to help you write a resume that could understand and draw out those success stories everyone has value, every single company, every single position. So let's highlight that value you brought to each position, and that's going to really make a stellar resume that's going to just go a lot further in your job search than what we typically see. I know, Dawn, I know, Annette, you see all the time resumes at 20 bullet points doesn't prove you did the job well at all. So that
Oh my
concept
gosh,
is
I'm
golden.
literally just oh, I just literally got someone who emailed me a resume for a review yesterday, and it is so completely not selling that person. It's like a really old format, and it's just, you know, I think what's really important, every single job seeker has to realize that their biggest investment into their whole lifetime of earnings potential is going to be in their resume. Most people don't put a lot of time or thought or energy into it. Whether you do it yourself or you hire a professional to do it, you gotta put the time and the effort in your resume, because that will help differentiate you not only through the applicant tracking systems, but then when a real life human being's reading it, they can see the value that you've driven. And to your point, Tom, you can't just list job duties in your resume. You have to show the value. And like this person that I'm just reviewing, she realized that she's trying to submit her resume to a recruiter who's kind of been bugging her. And she just realized that, oh man, this is way off base after I provide feedback. So it is an investment tool for you on your resume, so that if it will open more doors for you and also open up more revenue earnings potential for you. So it's a critical tool. And most people don't spend a lot of time on it. So it's something to think about to be more competitive in this job market.
I agree with you 100%, Dawn. And, we all have resume writing services and we're happy to, have anybody come on and hire us. But the truth is that, people can do their own resumes. I mean, but they just have to put in the time and they have to realize that, as you both have said, you have a resume that reads like a reverse engineered job description with the duties and responsibilities. That doesn't set you apart. That doesn't make anybody inspire anybody to contact you. And you have to think of your achievements, results, etc. And I just want to throw out there the formula that I use, and I think Dawn you use as well. If you are thinking about writing your own resume, think about things in terms of the CAR, the challenge, action, result. What was the challenge you faced? What were the actions you took? And what were the results, metrics that you have? And so many people think about resumes in terms of sales, sales quotas and generating income. But I have worked with people who've been sent to me. I'll never forget. I worked with someone who was in college and working as a paralegal, and she went in there and she just revamped the whole filing system to make it, make everything more efficient. And so every job, as Tom said, every job has value. So I don't know if I didn't mean to, if I cut you off, Tom, but jump in
No,
there.
no, no, I'm not cut off, not at all. Unfortunately, when I do recruiting, sometimes I have to pick the best resume from the worst, from the list of worst resumes. So even a resume that's written in those, well, let me back up. It's unfair to say everyone has metrics, because a lot of my clients, unless they're in sales or some type of operations, a lot of support positions, they don't have metrics. That does not mean you can't tell powerful stories with words. So don't forget, the outcomes don't have to be metrics. If they are, the eyeballs go to them quickly, and some ATS systems score those value statements at a higher level. But beyond that, a great resume that has really powerful bullet points will generate better interview questions. I spend so much time in discovery mode when I interview some people, because I have to discover where their strengths are. I have to discover where they made an impact. I shouldn't have to waste time during a job interview. The job interview should be, wow, you did this. Tell me about your thought process. Tell me about your planning. Tell me about obstacles you had when you increased this or you changed that. Tell me about the vendor negotiations when you brought in this new vendor to take on this service. Those are the questions you want to ask during a job interview. That discovery mode is just a big waste of time. So think about what the interviewer is going to ask questions about. A lot of those questions, about 35 to 40% of the questions during the interview should come from your resume. So that's my comment.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it is so important to have that resume. And the clients that I work with, I tell them when they're giving me information for, to help me write the resume, to think about that so what factor. You did this, you did that, but so what? And I get when I talk about metrics, what I think of as metrics for people who are in operations is they may do something that helps somebody else, or even themselves. They create a new process. So instead of it taking them, you know, 2 days a week, it only takes them a half a day, and so that is time saving, which is what I'm thinking of could possibly be a metric. So again, people in the audience, thank you so much for being here. If you have a question, please do come up and join us on the stage. We are a very friendly group and happy to answer any of your questions. And we have someone who just came up and joined us. And please forgive me as I am going to try to pronounce your name. I wish Clubhouse had pronunciation like LinkedIn. So I'm going to say Madhu. Is that correct?
Yes,
And what is
correct.
your
Thanks
question?
for that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just joined the room and I heard a couple of points from each of you. Hello everyone. I'm Madhupriya and I'm working presently in India. I'm based out of India. I work with one of the financial analytics organization here as a team lead. So I manage one of the teams. So when it comes to my resume, I've been struggling from last maybe more than a couple of months. So as you were mentioning, Annette, just a minute ago, that people into people or operations, right? So I tend to write everything in my resume, like whatever I did, a part of my job role. So that becomes a lengthy resume, which is not correct, is what I feel. So any guidance which you guys can provide me? Thanks.
I'll start here. So when you look at your resume, and this is something I do with a lot of resume reviews I do, I ask a person, were you good at your job? And they say, yeah. I said, did you provide solutions? Did you help move things forward? Did you help the team perform better? Typically, all the answers are yes, yes, yes. Then I tell them, well, look at the 20 bullet points you have underneath that job. Which ones prove you were successful? And 95% of the time, they start reading them and, well, they said none of them because it just sound like a job description. So one way to get around that, you look at the job description and you say, okay, I had this function or this duty. Who did it help? It helped the sales team, or it helped the operations team, or it helped the IT team. How did it help them? And you just keep digging until you get to the end impact. Whether it increased something, decreased something, whether it improved something. Then you get to the end impact, and that's where the golden nugget is. You take the golden nugget, you start the bullet point out with it, improve the efficiency of XYZ by doing the job function. That's a simplistic view on that, but that's really what it comes down to. You have to get at what's your function and what your responsibilities, who did it help and how did it help them? And then we start digging deeper and deeper, you get to those golden stories. And that's how you start writing a really more impactful resume. That's my comment.
Yeah, Tom, thanks for that. And I agree with you. But digging deep is like, I agree and need to spend much more time and understand what is good to write, and then I can go about it. Thanks for that, Tom.
Yeah, just keep asking yourself, who did it help? How did it help? And just keep digging deeper and deeper. And once you do it a couple of times, Pandora's box opens up. Then you understand how to understand the value brought to your company, your team, or your clients.
So Dawn, do you have any more suggestions? Thank you, Tom. That was great.
Well, I always think if you're struggling a little bit to figure out what kinds of things can you talk about, one of my go-to resources is to look at target job descriptions most directly and look at all the different, they list out what the requirements of the job are. So if you can take those with those requirements and transform them into like interview questions to prompt yourself. It's so if they're looking at a specific skill set, in the job description. So if you're in operations, it's like you must be, that they're looking for someone who's really committed to sustainability and efficiency. So then you could transform that into a question, like in an interview. Can you give me an example of something you've done on the job that's improved sustainability? And so that's where you start thinking, well, yes, I replaced all of the light bulbs in the facility with high efficiency LED lights, which cut electrical costs by X%. So now you have a really awesome win that you can talk about that talks about efficiency. But you also want to make sure that you really incorporate a wide array of the different facets of like operations, because there's efficiency, there's cost savings, there's how you improve the bottom line. It could have been that you helped remove a roadblock that was preventing productivity gains. So you don't want to have 10 examples of the exact same thing. You want to have 10 examples of different things related to operations, just to show that you have impacts in multiple areas. So this is Dawn. I'm done speaking.
Thank you so much, Don, for that.
Did that help clarify you? Because I've heard Dawn give that example before of using the job description, and I think that can be pretty beneficial. Did you find that helpful?
Yes, and it did. Thank you so much for the suggestions. I'll try
Well,
and I'll work on it. I'm hoping for best results.
okay. Well, go ahead, Tom.
Well, just to piggyback what Dawn said, yeah, you want to have a different types of success stories. So if you have a lot of bullet points, what we do in resume writing sometimes, especially in operations, because that's a heartbeat of a company. So you can talk about the people improvements, the operational enhancements, and driving the top or bottom line. And sometimes you have 3 or 4 different groups of bullet points, which helps breaks up the storytelling a little bit. That's my comment.
Yeah, true, Tom. It does happen. So whenever I take apart from my job role, when I try to include all these points, it really becomes a lengthy resume. So I'm really trying hard to cut it short and then look where it goes. I'll try and implement these points which you guys advised.
Well, my suggestion at the end would be, and I know that resumes can get longer and longer and longer, but you want to focus on the things that are most relevant and most compelling, because the resume is your marketing tool. It's to get the interview, not necessarily to get the job. So you just want to think of it as a marketing tool. Gerald, I thank you for joining us on the stage. Do you have a question or something to add?
Yeah, I've got a question as well. Thank you, Annette, for that. Hi, Gerald here. I'm dialing in from New Zealand, Christchurch, and one of the things that I noticed, I've been in the job market for I think about 30 odd years now, and made a number of applications. I realized as I do that, one of the key things that I'm seeing, or what I'm noticing, what has worked well for me, is sort of reading between the lines. I think when we look at many job advertisements, what is in there may not be exactly what the hirer or the organization is looking for in terms of the problem that they're actually looking to solve. And this can come about because it might be a new role that is being created, or it might be the incumbent has left and they're looking to replace. So I'm just trying to figure out, is that something that we need to be focusing on in terms of doing a little bit more research as far as some of the organization challenges, what the role is expected to accomplish, and whether this information, how do we actually go about getting this information, right? And where should this information actually be sitting in terms of how you can actually help the organization solve that particular problem or challenge that they're actually having? Is it actually in the resume, or is it actually in the cover letter, in terms of how we bring everything in the resume actually together to get them excited and interested, to perhaps read on or even call you for the interview? So that's my question, sort of comment kind of a thing. Thank you. I'm done speaking.
Tom is our recruiter and resume person, so why don't you kick us off, Tom?
Well, I think you're right. There's a lot of job postings that are old that might not be listing all the things they want you to handle in a job. But unfortunately, with a lot of ATS systems, the job posting is really driving which resume to get read in most cases. But to your point, if you think the company has certain types of challenges, sometimes just reading the blogs about the company, even going on maybe Glassdoor, seeing what other people are saying about the company, some of the challenges they're having. If you know anyone that works at a company, you reach out to them and see what's the current status of the company, what's coming up. You could try to gather your information and add some of those bullet points that would reflect those type of challenges the company has. Now, in the ATS system, typically the job posting drives the scoring if the company is using job boards. And the company can add anything else in the back end of the ATS system. Sadly, we don't know what they're adding. But I would say let the job posting drive it, and then do some homework and try to get sprinkled in some other types of strengths you have that they might be currently looking for. But that's a very valid question. And sometimes these job postings are so outdated. I had two companies that hired us to find some sales directors, and they had an old software they were using as a CRM. They haven't used it in 5 years, but yet they were using the same job posting over and over again. So those are some of the challenges we face, but try to do some homework and sprinkle some of those in. I think that would be a good combination. That's my comment.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that, Tom. Appreciate it. Yeah.
And by the way, I've been to Church of Christ 3 times. Love your country. I love New Zealand, Australia, yeah. New Zealand. So
yeah, we're not opened up just yet. We'll be opening up in stages from February onwards, so that's good news.
Yeah, it's been very, very restrictive. Yeah.
So do you feel like have you been served, as my friend Juanita would say, Gerald? Are you okay with that?
Yes. I'm definitely okay with that. I know a lot of. I think you talked about ATS systems, right? I'm not really familiar with these systems. Basically, they are sort of recruitment systems that's looking for certain keywords and trying to shortlist the candidates. So, what does that actually mean, Tom, when you talk about ATS?
Well, if it's a large company that has probably 300 to 400 people plus, most of them are using some sort of applicant tracking software system that parses your resume against what's in the ATS system, which is typically the job posting, and it looks for keywords. And these systems are smart today, so acronyms, synonyms, similar type of words you get credit for, but it's trying to match how well you match what they're looking for based on the content in your resume. So you want to try to match keywords or concepts within the resume that matches what the company has in the job posting, and that's going to help you get a higher scoring. And something else that a lot of people don't realize, we always talk about writing bullet points in the value-based story format, the reverse card story. The ATS systems today, about 40% of them have artificial intelligence and machine learning. It's looking for those trigger points that prove you were successful. It could understand the concepts and the content. These systems are getting super smart. So every time it reads one of those type of comments or those bullet points, it just edges your score up a little bit. So it's not just what we have in the resume, it's how we write it that's extremely important.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. So we need to be understanding how this ATS system works as well, as in order to be successful in getting the interview.
Right, and without losing your voice too, because you could put a 1,000 keywords in a resume, and it might get scored okay in the ATS system, but human beings not going to react to it. So it's finding that balance.
Right. So how does the cover letter play into all this? Is it also part of that resume consideration?
Used to be. Currently, in the past decade, cover letters are not uploaded into the ATS system. So the cover in my book, I'm not sure if Dawn and Annette would agree there. I think the resume proves you have the skills, the career history, and the success. I think the resume should prove you want to work for the company. So more about connecting to the company, their mission and their vision and what they do as a company as a whole. So a lot of people put all these keywords in the cover letter, and today the cover letter is not scanned with the resume for ATS scoring, unfortunately.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. Thank you for that perspective. Yeah.
You
But
know,
I'll jump in there too.
Oh, go ahead, Dawn.
That's not to be said that whenever you, it's not part of that equation. But then when you do make it through the system, that it is something, and it can and can't be read, the cover letter. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. I mean, the main thing is to get through the system and in front of a real live human being, and then the cover letters that polish to, kind of like icing on the cake. So it may be something that someone comes back to on the second or third pass versus the initial first pass. So just keep in mind that it may not register initially, but it may have an impact later on.
Well, I would wanted to jump in there and add as well for, some people have recommended that if you're just uploading a resume that you can, upload put your cover letter as the third page of your resume. But, for every recruiter that I've talked to who says they don't read the cover letters, you talk to one who says that they do. And, as Dawn said, and I have found when I was doing some recruiting myself that, I did read the cover letters and they really did influence me. And I have had hiring managers say that when it comes down to, two candidates, when it gets to that point that everything counts and the cover letter, can be one of those factors. So Tom, did you want to jump back in here?
Yeah, I didn't mean to say the cover letter wasn't important. I think it's extremely important. And I read cover letters, and most recruiters read the cover letter after the resume. So if you have a sucky resume, to be honest, the cover letter might not be enough. But in many cases, the cover letter is the right hook to close the deal. So they are very important. It's just that a lot of people assume they are part of the ATS scoring. And in many cases, actually most cases today, they're not.
Yeah.
It's interesting you said that, Tom, because my perspective, and I've always held this perspective. I need to revisit this perspective that I'm having. I thought the cover letter was actually the bait that gets someone interested to read the resume further, kind of a thing, So I really need to rethink what exactly you said just now.
Well, I did a survey in 2018, and 56% of recruiters read cover letters. Out of those 56%, 72% read it after the resume. Now, years ago, we used to mail out our resumes. We covered the resume with a letter, hence the name cover letter. So when you open up an envelope, you've seen the cover letter. You had no choice to see the cover letter first. Today, it's kind of opposite.
Okay, right. Thanks for that.
So
I have another point.
Oh.
Annette, can I go ahead?
Yeah, I just want to invite, we have some other people in the audience. If you would like to come up and join us on the stage, have a question, please do. Yes, please go ahead with your question.
Thanks. So I would like to ask, how true is that that really the recruiters do not go through the lengthy resumes? Is that true, or is that how the process goes on?
I'm not sure I understand. I couldn't hear you for a little bit of that. Can you just repeat that, please?
One second.
So go ahead, Tom. You're the recruiter. You can start us off, and I'm sure Dawn and I will have information to add. And if you're in the audience, please do come up and join us.
Well, first of all, you have to respect the time of the recruiter. So, that one-page rule, I don't typically follow the one-page rule. Typically, resumes for me, for a mid-level person, is 2 pages, and for executive level, is 3 pages on average. If you send a 10-page resume, you might as well send a note with me saying, "I apologize, my resume is 10 pages. I didn't take the time to make it 3." That saying, what's really important is the relevancy. So certain types, when jobs get old, when they get more than 15, 20 years old, maybe they're not relevant anymore. Some old skills, just make sure whatever on the resume is relevant for the jobs you're going after. And that's the best advice you could follow. So typically a 1 to 3 page resume is fine in today's market. That's my comment.
Got it, Tom. Thanks.
So, I see Dawn on mic. I just want to mention the longest resume I ever got when I was a recruiter was 8 pages, and oh my goodness, it was dreadful. So go ahead, Dawn.
Well, I think I can. I'll take your 8 pages and raise it by let's see here, 76 pages or something like that. I had an 81. Sorry, I guess my math was bad. 81 page resume from someone. I'm like, oh, it was all single space. It was like, oh my gosh. Anyway, so that's usually not most people's issue. So, and I do want to differentiate because it looks like we have some international folks in the audience. We do have the CV format, which is much different than the resume format. So usually CVs are a little bit more lengthy than the American style resume, which is usually no more than 2 pages if you're not an executive or scientist or in a highly technical field. So, but generally, I always say there's sort of a loose rule of thumb. Generally, anybody under 35 hasn't really worked enough jobs in one particular field to really build up a career, because there's a lot of exploration and figuring out of where you're going early on. So, but that there are exceptions to that. So, generally, if you're under 35, probably 1 page, because that's what you have. But, if you've got stuff to talk about, employers are willing to read if you've got important things to discuss. And there's, again, exceptions to the rule. So I worked with one young lady who was under 35, and she had worked for a U.S. senator and gotten in construction, was managing projects. So basically, that she obviously went to 2 pages. So, but if you're getting into 3 pages and you're applying to jobs in the US, then you really need to ask yourself, what is it that you're including in there? We don't want fluff. It all has to be meaningful and helpful. But if it is meaningful and helpful, then by all means go to 2 pages. So, there is no 1 page rule set out there that a lot of people think about and hear about. So just be aware of that. This is Dawn. I'm done speaking.
I've heard a lot about that 1 page resume as well. And, I will mention that I talk often with a recruiter friend of mine, Tina, who I think Tom and Dawn, you both know. She is based in Belgium, and I know that different countries do have different formats. But my understanding is for most of Europe, it's also kind of sticking to 2 pages as well. So I'd like to just kind of turn our attention to another area. And I know Dawn has to go. John, if you want to just tell people where they can reach you before you run off. Nope, maybe not. Okay. So I just like to kind of turn our attention to a different area, and that's cover stories. I've been talking a lot about that with people lately, and the idea of cover stories. And I know that when I talk to recruiters, Tina most recently, but also to Felipe, that recruiters don't see a lot of candidates with cover stories. And I know she mentioned that if they do see someone with a cover story, it really makes them stand out. And before we started today, I went and checked the profiles, and I saw that Tom, you have a cover story. Cool for you. And Mary, who is, I guess, running late, may not make it, also has a cover story. I didn't see one on Dawn's profile, so we got to get you getting up that cover story, Dawn. But Tom, you know, does that make a difference when you're checking out LinkedIn profiles? Does the cover story have any influence on you?
Well, just like anything else, it depends on the quality. Just like the quality of the resume, the quality of a cover letter, the quality of the cover story. So the cover story, just like your voicemail message, outgoing message, I need to feel a little bit of energy, speaking straight into the camera. Use that 29 seconds to really tell me something important about you and your career. They could be very effective, but if they're done poorly, they could be very ineffective. So like anything else we do, just put your mind to it. Take a few videos, pick the best one you like, have a friend help you, and it could be the right hook, because we're looking at profiles, we're looking at resumes, hearing a voice and excitement and the energy from somebody could really be the right hook.
Yeah, and some people, worry and hesitate about their cover story the same way they do about their headshot, and they don't want to do it for, one reason or another. But the thing is, the cover story is only, they say it's 30 seconds, but unless you're creating it right on the LinkedIn app, you only have 29 seconds, and it doesn't have to be 29 seconds. So if you can even do 6 seconds saying, hi, I'm Annette, and, I create marketing campaigns that, increase subscriptions and generate revenue. That would be, I think, better than nothing. What do you say to that?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. It doesn't have to be 29 seconds, but just get something there that lets me know a little bit about you and your career. And sometimes I see some people do it on a personal note, saying, as you read my profile, you see my career, a few things you don't know about me. I like to do mountain climbing and I like to do hang gliding and stuff. So you can use it any way you see fit. Just make sure it's engaging and authentic too.
Yeah, and one of the things, and maybe we can get you on board with this, Don. One of the things I want to mention too, while I am a big proponent of, having your face on your cover story because it does give people an opportunity, to see you. You can create a cover story without using, if you don't want to have your face on camera, you can use an app like InShot where you can just upload photographs and you can do a voice narration and create a cover story that way. So at least you are using, the feature. I mean, I'm a big believer that if you're looking for a job, or if you're people like us looking for clients on LinkedIn, that you should use every single function that you have. And I see, Gerald, you're also in the career industry, so I hope that you have a cover story as well.
Unfortunately, I don't, Annette. It's quite interesting you mentioned cover story. That's something new to me. I haven't sort of thought about it that way. So I'm just sort of quietly listening into what you're saying and trying to see how I can put that into practice.
The easiest way to access it, Gerald, is going through your mobile app. You could upload a video some other way, but the easiest way to play around with it is to use the mobile app. Hit record and just play with it with your phone, and you can put it up and take it down a second later. But just get used to doing it, and it's a lot easier than you think. So
Right.
have
So
fun
what
with
you're
it.
saying, Tom, it just goes onto your profile in LinkedIn. Is that it? It's part of your
It's
profile,
part of
is
your profile, but you access it and record it through your mobile app.
Okay, got you. I think there's something that I should be putting out there, just for people to understand where I'm coming from. Yeah, it's quite interesting. You say that one of the challenges I have with LinkedIn is I'm on the side also a coach kind of a thing, and I struggle with that whole idea. At the same time, I have a full-time job, and how do you actually balance the two in terms of how LinkedIn comes across? And I'm always sort of challenged to sort of um, uh, to see how best to position myself, in that sense. Any ideas on that one, Tom?
Well, that's a common question. I'm a firm believer we should all have more than one source of income. We all have some type of side hustle, side gig. But depending on your company and how they view LinkedIn, and depending on the structure of how many hours you are required to work or should work for that type of role, some companies that are very demanding in the time that you have to put in the company, if they feel you're slacking off and they realize you have another job, they might feel that you might give that job a little more clout than it needs to be during the day. So as long as there's some really, clean lines between your side gig and your day job, you should be fine.
Right,
That's my
that
point
makes
of view.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of people, maybe not a lot, but I've talked to quite a few people who are trying to, have their sort of side gig and their day job, if you will, on their LinkedIn profile. The one thing that I would recommend is that you might want to, disclose if you're connected to your boss or colleagues on LinkedIn that you might want to, mention that you're having a side gig. Is that something that I know many businesses, many employers today are completely cool with that? It is yours, Gerald?
Yeah, but it's quite interesting you say that, Annette, because I'm a coach, right? A professional coach. So I coach in the corporate sector in terms of performance
Oh,
challenges
okay.
that people might
Okay.
have.
Yeah, I,
Yeah,
I saw I saw the coaching in your Clubhouse profile, and I thought you were referring to your coaching as your side gig. Sorry about that.
it is the coaching is actually my side gig, and what I've tended to do now going forward in my applications, I position coaching as a core skill set I bring to the role, right? Because I'm an accountant by training, and I do sort of internal audit and risk related work where I have to influence the business to do certain things in a certain way, right? So coaching really helps me play into that aspect, and I need to be able to coach others to see things in a certain way and to get them to do things in a certain way. So I think I've had some success to bring that into my resumes also. So I'm not sort of embarrassed or ashamed to say I do coaching. So I think it's helped me over the years.
Just one quick note. When you have two jobs or more on your LinkedIn profile that are all current, you can reorder them in any order you want. So I would suggest that your day job, where your bosses are and stuff on LinkedIn, make sure that the first job showing, and then your side gig is showing second, just to take some of the stigma away from that.
Yeah, that's right. Makes sense. Yeah.
So we've been talking about different, different things that are making the job market so competitive right now, and um, what would you say, Tom and Dawn, for candidates who really want to stand out, let's say on LinkedIn? Because I know that if a recruiter gets a resume, I think you'll back me up on this, Tom. If you get a resume and you're interested in that candidate, that you will go to their LinkedIn profile to learn more about them. And, that's what I coach my clients to make sure that they have a fabulous LinkedIn profile, because anyone who, likes their resume, is intrigued, is going to go there to learn more about them. And it's also someplace where people are, if someone meets you at a networking event, or if I am, if somebody that I know says to me, "Oh, Annette, I'm looking for someone, who can be a marketing manager. We're looking for a marketing director." And if I say, "Oh, my friend Dawn, she does that, Dawn Rasmussen," the first thing they're going to do is go to Dawn's profile and look her up and learn about her. So, what are some tips as we're kind of winding down here for making your LinkedIn profile stand out?
I'll jump in there if you don't mind, Tom.
Sure.
When we're looking at LinkedIn profiles, you have to make it conversational. The easy default setting is a lot of people just dump their resume or CV into their LinkedIn profile, and that's not telling anybody anything new. And it is social media, so therefore it needs to be social. So adding a conversational tone and some little bit more personal attributes in terms of what makes you tick that maybe doesn't come out as clearly in your resume, because the resume is much more formal language. You can really transform your LinkedIn profile into a vehicle that communicates your chemistry and culture fit to potential employers as they read through. So it should be synonymous to, but not exactly the same as your resume. It's adding a little bit more of a personal element in there that tells more about you as a person. So, like, what kinds of things are your greatest takeaways from your time at that position? What did you enjoy the most? What was something that was unique about your work there? And so that adds a little bit more of that personality injection into the LinkedIn profile, which therefore can add to the bigger picture, the aggregate picture of who you are and what you have to bring to the table. So this is Dawn. I'm done speaking.
Well, I would agree 100%. Dawn hit that directly on the head. And that's where the resume and LinkedIn kind of, differs a little bit. But I think we're forgetting that we're in a social recruiting age right now. More and more companies are looking for talent, and they're doing LinkedIn is one of the main tools. I recruit for 4 companies. 2 companies I recruit for, I haven't posted a job in 4 years, and combined, not a lot, maybe about 65 positions we hire each year for these 2 companies. Not one of those jobs are posted. We find the talent on LinkedIn. So just like the resume and LinkedIn, they work hand in hand. They support each other. I always use the motto, your LinkedIn should be your resume on steroids. And you can get that personal conversation and then get those stories, add a little more flavor and a little more excitement to the LinkedIn profile because you just have more room. Everything's truncated. A recruiter decides what they want to read by opening up each section. So have fun with it. Get a little personal voice in there. Don't overdo it. But your LinkedIn profile should be your resume on steroids. That's my comment.
I have another question for both of you. And of course, I agree. Your LinkedIn profile, I think, should tell a little bit about you, give some insight into who you are. And I work with my clients to tell a little bit about how they got into their career or what excites them. And I love the takeaways that Dawn uses. She used that on me when she wrote my profile many, many years ago, and I use that with my clients as well. It's a great way to you know really show what drives you when you're talking about, the most enjoyable thing for me at this company was, working with such dynamic colleagues. Well, that says a little bit about what you value. So my question is about the headline. And I was for a long time under the idea of having, the job title start the headline. And I have sort of shifted a bit of my thinking to having, maybe starting the headline with, something about what you do rather than your job title, although you do have to have the title, I think, in the headline. So what are your thoughts on that, Tom and Dawn?
Well, hold on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay. Well, the headline is one of those 3 areas of LinkedIn profile that gets indexed first. So starting off your headline with your top 1 or 2 target job titles helps you get found for that because it's going to be indexed. And especially if you're going to look for a different job title, whether it's going to be a promotion, getting that job title in the profile in one of the 3 sections, which is the headline, the job title lines in your career experience, and the skills section, is going to help you in the back end when the sorting algorithms help LinkedIn Recruiter pick the best profile to read first, similar to an ATS system. So for me, it doesn't matter. I'm not looking for a job. So if you're on LinkedIn and you want to, grow your career, you want to get found for your next opportunity, I think it's crucial to have the top 1 or 2 job titles. And this is the reason LinkedIn created a 220 character headline when it used to be 120 characters, because they realized a lot of people weren't getting the right content in the headline. So they give you more space to get some more keywords in there. So that's my comment.
I like to use the that section on the LinkedIn profile as a way to not only clarify what it is that you do, but also use that to really drive home your branding statement. Like, what would separate you out from everybody else that does that same kind of thing? So you do want to incorporate the job title in there, so it helps position you and tee up what you're going to discuss in the rest of the LinkedIn profile. But your branding statement is really important. Really say, what is it that you do that makes you different and better at doing it? So it's a really key point of your whole profile to tee up the rest of what you're going to discuss. This is Dawn. I'm done speaking.
And just to piggyback Dawn, I 100% agree with that, because when I'm looking at LinkedIn Recruiter, the first thing I see in this list of 100 candidates, I see the headshot, I see the headline first, and I see the candidate's name. So the headline really draws the recruiter in to click on your profile to look at your profile. So definitely get your branding statement in there.
Well, thank you so much. We are just about, winding down at the end of our, we're almost to the top of the hour. And I just want to, thank you both for being here so much. And for anyone who is listening on the replay, where can people find you day to day? And are you open to connecting with them on LinkedIn? Dawn, why don't you start?
Dawn Rasmussen. I'm with Pathfinder Writing and Career Services, and you can find me on LinkedIn there under my name. And I look forward to hearing from folks, and feel free to reach out.
Same with me, Tom Powner from Career Thinker, going on 12 years in career services. Connect me on LinkedIn. And if you need a free resume LinkedIn review, me and Dawn, I'm sure we're open to doing that at any time.
And the last question is, of course, I'm Annette Richmond, and you can certainly find me on LinkedIn. I'm there every single day. And any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Just keep on keeping on. Just keep the faith and know your value and own it. That's the best thing you can do. This is Dawn. I'm done speaking. Have a great weekend.
And to piggyback Dawn, yes, always keep going forward. Never take your foot off the gas pedal until you have that job offer and have a start date, and even then sometimes. But never take your foot off the gas pedal, because you never know where your next opportunity would come from.
Yes, that is so true. Unless you have that job offer in writing in your hand, keep looking. Don't stop because they say, oh, you're at the top of the list, or, oh, we're just waiting to put the offer together. Keep looking. So thank you so much to everyone. We've had a couple people here for us the entire hour. Thank you so much for being here, and have a great rest of your day.